I never thought I'd be posting here about problems with my family, but here I am. For some backstory, I'm an 18-year-old female, and my parents, both 44, have always been controlling. I moved into my own apartment 2 weeks ago after starting college. I turned 18 in the summer and needed peace and quiet to focus on my studies. My parents' house is always chaotic, with three younger siblings, the youngest only 2 years old. So, getting my own place felt like a fresh start. I left most of my belongings at my parents' house, planning to pick them up later when I had more time. Last week, I went on a 6-day college trip to a nearby country where we studied the local history and visited historic sites. It was an affordable trip, and since I'm a bit of a penny pincher, I appreciated that. Everything seemed to be going well until I got home. I returned to my apartment about 10 hours ago and immediately checked my bank account to see how much I had spent on the trip. That's when my stomach dropped. My entire savings, about 4,000 euros, was gone, completely wiped out. I panicked and immediately checked my transaction history. The money had been transferred to my mom's account. My parents had access to my bank account, but I never imagined they would actually take my money without asking. I tried calling them. No answer. Desperate, I drove straight to their house. When I got there, I found the place empty. I didn't have a key, but I knew they always left one under the doormat, so I let myself in. I went straight to my room, only to find that half of my belongings were missing. My necklaces, my desktop computer, some furniture, expensive clothes, a dress I bought with my own money, and several other valuables were just gone. I was in complete shock. At first, I thought maybe they had moved some of my stuff, but as I looked around, I realized this was no mistake. Things had been taken. I tried calling my dad, and thankfully he answered. I asked him what was going on, why my money was gone, and where my things were. His response? That stuff was from our wallets. You're on your own now. I was speechless. I knew exactly what he meant. Yes, they had bought some things for me over the years, like my desk or certain clothes, but a lot of it had been purchased with my own money or given to me as gifts. They had no right to take everything. As for my savings, I had carefully put that money together over the years. About 1,500 euros came from my summer jobs. 1,000 euros were gifts from relatives for my transition into adulthood, and the remaining 1,500 euros were from my parents giving me money over the years, supposedly so I'd have a safety net when I turned 18. Now they had taken everything. I still don't know if they sold my belongings, but I have no other explanation for why my most valuable possessions were missing. I stood there in my childhood bedroom, feeling helpless and betrayed. Since my parents wouldn't pick up my calls and I had no idea where they were, I did something desperate. I searched the house for any cash and found about 600 euros in a vitrine. I took it. I know stealing is wrong, and I feel awful about it, but I had no other choice. That 600 euros wasn't even enough to cover my next rent and bills. I left the house in a daze, trying to process what had just happened. I went back later that day to see if anyone had returned home. Still empty. I still have no idea where my parents or siblings are. I decided that the longer I waiting for them, the more the problem will grow bigger, so I had to do something now. The first thing I did was visit my bank. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to close my account because my mother had partial ownership of it, but I was able to open a new one in my name. From now on, all my money will go there. I spoke to my study advisor, and shockingly, she told me this wasn't the first time she'd heard of something like this happening to students. Apparently, some parents take advantage of their child's money once they turn 18, knowing they can get away with it. As he told me that legally I could fight this, but taking my parents to court would likely cost more than what I lost. I felt defeated. The only silver lining was that my study advisor gave me free textbooks to use for the rest of the academic year, which helped a little. I also told my boyfriend about everything. He's currently studying abroad as an exchange student, so he couldn't be there physically to support me, but he's been calling me every day to check in. He even asked his parents to support me in small ways, like inviting me over for meals, helping with laundry, and just being there for me. On top of that, he sent me 500 euros, which I deeply appreciate. I started worrying about my family's whereabouts, so I stalked their social media. Turns out they went to a spa for a few days, probably using my money. That was the final straw. For several days, I kept checking their house, and eventually I found them at home. When I tried to confront them, they slammed the door in my face and told me to leave. It was like they had completely disowned me. Even my grandparents have been acting weird, and I don't understand why. That's when I knew I had to find a way to survive on my own. So I made some tough decisions. I sold my car since I didn't really need it, and I got a decent amount of money for it. I visited social services and applied for financial aid. I was approved for housing allowance, student allowance, and a learning materials supplement for the rest of the academic year. I found a part time job at a fast food restaurant. I work evenings after classes and on weekends. And luckily, that was enough for me to able to pay off all my rent and bills for the last month and start saving again. It's been a tough road, but I'm slowly regaining control of my life. A month ago, I was in debt, barely holding it together. Now, I have financial support, a steady job, and a plan. As for my parents, I refuse to have contact with them until they apologize and acknowledge what they did. If they don't, then I guess I no longer have parents. My boyfriend is coming back next month, and I can't wait to see him. For now, I'm just focusing on myself. Thank you to everyone who listened to my story.